Okay, the process that we are going to use in order to do regression on our calculator would begin with collecting some data. Of course, in most of the problems you're going to be given, you'll be given the data. So I've started off with a table, and the table below lists the average earnings of full-time workers as a function of the number of years of education beyond 8th grade. So in our table, we have years beyond 8th grade, 0, 4, 6, and 8, and average earnings, 16,000, 24,000, 28,000, and 36,000. Now what we're going to do is enter this data in our calculator. The way we do this is we press the Stat key, followed by number 1, Edit. And you can either press the Enter there or just press the number 1. And now I'm going to enter the data. Again, mine's all cleared out, so I'm good to go. I could type over the top, or I could delete out each of the individual entries if I had things in there. But I don't. So I'm just going to type, and you'll notice if I type 0 and press Enter, it goes down a line. So I would type in all the first coordinates first. So 0, 4, 6, and 8. And then I would use my arrow key to arrow to the right, and I would type in all of the second pieces of information. So there's 16,000, 24,000, enter, 28,000, and enter, and 36,000. And enter. At this point in time, I like to make sure that I've actually typed the data in correctly, so I'll go back and just double check. This process will not work if you don't have matched pieces of data, so you want to make sure that your columns are the same length. So now if I look at my data, and you'll notice in your notes that I actually have the same thing typed, I can now actually graph this data. Now it won't always be necessary to graph the data, but I always think it's a nice exercise to do. So what I might do is I could go to the window and I could pick numbers that would actually include this data. So I notice my x's go from 0 to 8, so I might pick something a little lower than 0. So maybe I pick -2. Maybe I'll keep the 10 because that's a little bit bigger than 8. And then to do the y's, I need something lower than 16,000. So I tried 15,000. And for the max, my highest was 36,000, so maybe I'd try 40,000. Now, the X scale and Y scale tell me how big of a little notch I make, or how big my little hash marks are. I probably don't want 1 unit for each Y, so I'm going to pick 5,000. Okay, and then I'm just going to press the graph key. And I go, oh, now wait a minute, I don't see any data. What I have to do is I actually have to turn on the stat plot. I have to actually tell it that I want it to graph some statistical data. So to do that, I press the second key and the stat plot key, and I pick a plot to turn on. And you'll notice these all say off. So I just pick one to turn on. I'll pick the first one. And you'll notice that the cursor here is blinking on. So I press Enter to turn it on. I'm going to make a dot plot type of thing, so I'm going to use the first option under Type. My X list is my L1, my Y list is my L2, and I'm going to use this particular mark just because it's easier to see on the screen. So now that I've turned it on, if I press Graph, you'll actually see the data.